Hello and welcome to London Guided Walks podcast. In the coming episodes, we'll be sharing our love and passion for London, its people, places and history in an espresso shot with a splash of personality. For those of you who don't know me, I am Hazel Baker, founder of londonguidedwalks.co.uk, providing guided walks, private tours and treasure hunts to Londoners and visitors alike. What do pelicans, parakeets and polar bears have in common? My favourite London park is also the oldest royal park in London, St James's. It's surrounded by three palaces: the Palace of Westminster, more commonly known as the Houses of Parliament, St James's Palace, built by Henry VIII, and Buckingham Palace, the official London residence of the UK sovereigns since Queen Victoria in 1837. The park's famous deep flower beds are a particular backdrop to pageants, including Trooping the Colour. And when taking a stroll through this picturesque royal park, I do try and steal a few moments and go and visit Tiffany, Isla and Goji, and their new friends, Sun, Moon and Star. They are residents of St James's Park, and they are also pelicans. Great white pelicans, to be precise. I still chuckle when witnessing the surprise of passers-by when they see these great birds and then have a double take because they're actually realising what they're seeing, not a normal sight in London. These pelicans have the second largest wingspan of all living birds after the albatross, ranging between 2.26 metres, which is about 7'4", to 3.6 metres, which is about 11'8". As an unusual sight this may be for visitors, pelicans were first introduced to St James's Park in 1666 as a gift to Charles II from the Russian ambassador. These free-roam pelicans are rarely known to stray far from the lake in St James's Park. The best places to see them are when they're basking in their favourite sunny spot on the rocks by Duck Island Cottage, or feeding time, and that's quite a spectacle. Normally occurs every day between 2:30 and 3 p.m. It's a chance to really see how magnificent these birds are, but also how gigantic. The adults weigh from 9 to 15 kilograms, which is about 20 to 33 pounds, and that's about the same weight as a Cardigan Welsh Corgi dog. Even though fish is the staple food of these pelicans, they have been known to snack on London pigeons from time to time, and if you really want to see that, then I will provide you with a link in the show notes. London is also home to a healthy population of ringneck parakeets. Newcomers to London are often taken by surprise of a flash of green caught in the corner of their eye whilst making the rounds of some of the greener parts of London. Richmond Park, Hyde Park and Greenwich Park are places where I've regularly heard and seen these ringneck parakeets. They have even discovered the bird feeder in my garden, and originally designed for the smaller dwindling UK birds, they really do like to get their fill. If you ask a random stranger on the streets of London, honouring social distancing protocol of course, how these bright and vibrant green birds happen to have made their way into London, you may hear a number of different urban legends. Some say Jimi Hendrix released a pair of parakeets called Adam and Eve into the air around Carnaby Street in 1968. Another popular story is that the parakeets arrived in 1951 with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn when they were filming The African Queen at Isleworth Studios, and these parakeets somehow managed to escape. Going back even further, I have heard a tale of how they had been escapees of Henry VIII's menagerie, with these iridescent birds having somehow remained hidden for 400 years. However, they got here from about 1970 onwards. Their numbers have boomed. In 1992, 700 birds were recorded in London. By 1998, that had gone up by 2,845. And in 2006, the ringneck parakeet was the 15th most sighted bird in London. You'd think that these parakeets would suffer during our cold winter months, but they do seem to handle the weather a lot better than some of our locals. They're flourishing, and also maybe that's something to do with their 35-year life expectancy. And of course, they have few predators in London, and this enables them to breed freely. Britain's embattled birds of prey, such as owls and pedigree falcons, have been known to eat them, and they have also been accused of stealing the homes of some native birds. Parakeets nest in tree cavities, which are also used by jackdaws, owls, and woodpeckers, but there's little evidence that native species have been muscled out. In their native India, the parakeets are known to cause widespread damaged crops. Perhaps this won't be a concern in the UK if they stay only to urban areas. If you've seen these parakeets in London, then let us know. Tag us on social media and share your love. For good or for ill, these parakeets, just like the grey squirrel, are here to stay. So, we've covered parakeets and pelicans, but what about polar bears? The Tower of London used to be home to a polar bear. The Royal Menagerie at the Tower of London was probably founded in 1204, when King John brought 3 shiploads of wild beasts, lions and leopards to England from Normandy. In the early days, most of the animals in the tower came from the northwest of Africa, including leopards and lynx seen by the humanist scholar John Keyes in 1561. And Keyes sent drawings of them to Conrad Gessner for his Historia Animalium, and images were reprinted in Topsails translations and History of Four-Footed Beasts and Serpents, 1658. But why the Tower of London? Well, the monarch would receive the animals as gifts from usually other powerful rulers at the time, often to impress or to show the wealth and strength of a ruler. The exotic animals were sent to London from all over the world and kept in the Tower of London as a symbol of power, as well as for the curiosity and entertainment, of course, of the court. King Henry III was particularly credited with establishing the Royal Menagerie at the Tower of London. In 1235, he was given 3 lions as a wedding gift by the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick III. And then, in 1252, a white bear joined the collection, and we're therefore assuming it's a polar bear. The bear also came with a must-have accessory, however, its own keeper. Both were gifts from King Haakon III from Norway. The royal beast was one of the luckier animals who lived at the tower. Legend has it that the bear was given a long leash so it had the freedom to swim and catch its own fish for its supper from the River Thames. What a sight that must have been, and I have no idea how they managed to get that beast back into the Tower of London afterwards. One of the biggest animal gifts the royals received was in 1255. King Henry III was given a male African elephant from King Louis IX of France. It suggested that over the years, any elephants that lived in the tower were given wine to drink in the winter months. They believed that it would keep out the cold and warm the elephants up. Londoners flocked to see the novel sight. Although the elephant had a brand new 40-foot by 20-foot elephant house and a dedicated keeper, it died after a couple of years. And many of the other animals did not survive in the cramped, cold conditions. Although lions and tigers fared better, and with many cubs being born, in the 1300s visitors to the tower would have had to first cross a drawbridge to the Lion Tower, named after the beast being kept there. And now you can see lion sculptures and other installations on the site of the Tower of London to commemorate the former inhabitants there. In the 16th century, the menagerie at the Tower of London was opened to the public. But this wasn't without its problems. A lady named Mary Jenkinson had her arm mauled by a lion when she got too close to the cage, and she died shortly afterwards. One of the rooms at the tower featured a furnished room where the tower monkeys lived, and visitors could enter and be amused by their antics. However, the monkeys were removed in 1810 after they tore a boy's leg off in a dangerous manner. There is also another report of a baboon who managed to get hold of a cannonball whilst being transported to the tower and threw it at a sailor, killing him. But all things must come to an end. In 1831, after over 600 years of almost continuous operation, the menagerie at the Tower of London was closed and the animals moved to a new facility, the newly opened Zoological Gardens in Regent's Park, now what we call the London Zoo. But it wasn't just the king who had fantastic beasts at his disposal. Various members of the royal family kept collections of exotic animals on their estates at Richmond and Kew. During the 1740s, Frederick, Prince of Wales, was sent a pair of zebras from Cape of Good Hope. The stallion en route sadly died, but the female lived at Kew for a good several years. A picture of her by George Edwards was drawn in 1751 and shows her with dark brown stripes on a brownish background, which fades towards her rump. The correlation of quagga, extant in 1885, and now considered to have been a subspecies of zebra. But it wasn't just the royals who liked to collect these exotic creatures. From the early 18th century onwards, increasing number of private individuals started collections. They were usually housed on their country estates. The Duke of Richmond's estate, Goodwood, for example, had a menagerie including wolves, leopards, and a lioness, a tiger cat, at least 3 bears, a white bear, 2 owls, and an armadillo. Among his household pets was a tame and inoffensive Java. And Java, it was the first agouti from South America to be recorded in England. In 1738, Captain Craig Hart brought the Duke a pair of caribou from Greenland, which were also drawn by George Edwards before being sent to the Duke's estate in the hope that they might breed. Sadly, they both died shortly afterwards. Hans Sloane was one of the most influential men of early 18th century London. He amassed one of the greatest private collections of plants, animals, and antiquities, including coins and other curiosities. He kept a wide variety of exotic animals at his home in Chelsea, where the unusual household pets included a one-eyed wolverine from Hudson's Bay. The best-known commercial menagerie of the late 18th and early 19th centuries was housed on the second floor of the Exeter Exchange on the Strand in London, not too far from where Charing Cross Station is now. It was started in 1778 by Thomas Clark and showed some of the first Australian marsupials in Britain. This included a betong, which is a kangaroo cat, a flying phalanger, and a kangaroo. The Exeter Exchange was a building on the north side of the Strand, with an arcade extending partway across the carriageway. It was most famous for the menagerie occupied in its upper floors for about 50 years, from 1773 until its closing in 1829 when it was demolished. What animals are top of mind when you think of animals in London? Perhaps it's the lions at Trafalgar Square, or the pigeons from Mary Poppins film, or perhaps it's the dragons surrounding the City of London. What if I told you London had been home to straight-tusked elephants, giant deer with antlers almost the size of the deer's height, and several species of now extinct rhinoceros? All of this is true. It just happened a long time ago. 130,000 years to be precise. This was a time when the sea level was low enough to reconnect Britain to the continent, enabling lions and other animals to cross over into Britain. And they left when the cold weather increased, and cold-loving species such as reindeer, woolly mammoths, and woolly rhinoceros replaced them. It's hard to imagine ice extending as far south as what is now Finchley in North London, and remarkably, hippo remains in particular have been found in London in ancient Thames gravels beneath Trafalgar Square, and also at Brentford. For hundreds of years, up to the middle of the 1800s, Londoners enjoyed blood sports. And of course, that meant the blood of innocent animals. Ratting, cockfighting, and dogfighting were commonplace in purpose-built arenas attached to inns and taverns. In Life in London, the protagonists visit the Westminster Pit to see a dog fight against a monkey. It's described: "The monkey with its teeth, which met together like a saw, made a large wound in against the throat of the dog, as if done with a knife. And from the great loss of blood, the dogs in general sustained, who were pitted against Jacko Macco. Several of them died soon afterwards." The foundation of the Society of the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in London in 1824 reflected a changing attitude towards such sports. Betting on animals through the 20th century was also popular, but just less bloody. Greyhound racing was the born spectator sport in the 1920s. It arrived in London in 1927 when a track was constructed at White City. By 1933, London had 17 greyhound tracks, attracting just over 9 million Londoners a year. Haringey's track was a 50,000-seat stadium, and it was built on top of a spoil tip left by the extension of the Piccadilly line to Finsbury Park. It aimed to be a glamorous dog track, and it was said to experimented with racing cheetahs. All of these stories are quite remarkable, and all of these stories are true. And it's only a little taster of the extensive history that London has with animals. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. Please do leave a review. If you only have any suggestions of what we'll be talking about in our next podcast episodes, then please do let me know via our website, londonguidedwalks.co.uk/podcast. That's all for now.